Tip of the cap to you, my friend. How goes it?
Man, it's going well. We're covering a bit. We don't have any storms today, thankfully. So I'm not going to complain, bro.
Man, please tell me you didn't just jinx it because we've had enough. Enough is enough.
Bro,
Enough is enough. Can we
I feel like I'm living in Seattle.
sunshine?
You know, I feel like I'm in Seattle with all this rain every day. And then we know in the summer we're going to go through a ridiculous drought.
Yeah, of course. It's going, right on schedule. It's going to happen, and it's funny because we're sitting here saying how tired we are of the rain, which is justified considering how much rain we've been getting. But when we don't get that rain in a few weeks, and that sun is absolutely bullying us and stuffing us into a locker for the next 2 months, we're gonna want that rain. But hey, that's how it goes, right?
You ain't lying. I'm not going to complain about it, just like I'm not going to complain about any type of Cowboys news or nuggets we can get because the slow period is here, Pat, unfortunately. And we'll try to get through it as best we can.
Yeah, here we are, 6 weeks or so before Cowboys depart for training camp in Oxnard. The expected date of travel is going to be July 22nd. First practice will be held as early as July 23rd. It's going to be the longest training camp held in Oxnard in franchise history. I believe the longest training camp in Cowboys franchise history. We will be out there with the team for 31 consecutive days. So when you hear Micah Parsons say things like it's going to be a long time in Oxnard for, to work out any chemistry things or whatever, that's what he means. I mean, it's going to be a month plus out there straight. So going to be a lot of work getting done.
Well, one of the guys that'll be joining this year is Zach Martin. And we were talking about him prior to you coming on here. And, he mentioned, and I think you wrote an article about it as well, how this could be closer to the end for one Zach Martin. And I had put out not two questions, but two statements. I guess two questions. Is this the last year for Zach, and is his replacement on the roster? I think yes to both of those, but what say you, Pat?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that everyone is finally on this frequency and having this conversation because it's something that a topic that I broached back in early to mid-February, and ever since then, whenever the offensive line is brought up, I've always over the past several months kind of talked about the post-Zach Martin era. What's the post-Zach Martin plan? And of course, because it's such an uncomfortable conversation for even some analysts to have, let alone for Cowboys fans to have, nobody really wanted to latch on to that until here recently when our good friend Michael Gelkin asked Zach about it, and Zach basically said, well, it's not 100% certain that he'll be retiring in 2025, but he basically intimated that it is on the table. So here we are, folks. Thanks and welcome to the conversation. Zach Martin, I believe he hangs it up in 2025, and here's my thought process on it. He's about to be 34 if he's not 34 already. And although he's been one of the most durable players in the history of the league, at the same time, that catches up with him. So you're starting to see over the past 2 or 3 seasons some of his injuries start to kind of crop up that are very un-Zach Martin-esque. And I think that that's only going to continue as he gets to his mid-30s and late 40s. And I don't think that he's going to play into late 30s. I don't think he's going to play into his late 30s. I think that if the Cowboys can somehow figure out how to break the drought, we talk about droughts, 30 years, break this drought and get to and win the Super Bowl, then of course you want to go out on that high note, right? That's Jordan over Russell with the Pogues in Utah. That's how Zach Martin wants to go out. However, if the Cowboys, I do believe the Cowboys make the playoffs at minimum. If they make the playoffs and there's another unceremonious exit or exit period, I think it's going to be so mentally defeating. Zach Martin calls it a career anyway, because if you look back to his body language following the loss to the Packers, if you go back and look at his body language just over the past 2 playoff exits,
49ers.
He's been really mentally exhausted with the whole, we did all of this to get here, and here we are again not getting the job done. So I think whether the Cowboys win a Super Bowl and send him out on top or have an unceremonious playoff exit, I think either way Zach Martin is going to go ahead and hang it up. So that's why I said in my tweet, I think it's now or never.
Yeah, and unfortunately for the offensive lineman, we don't really get a chance to really see how they are down at camp. We know what Zach is, but there's a lot of other these young guys we would like to see get some work in, but no pads, so you really can't get a gauge. However, 7-on-7s, the skilled players, wide receivers, DBs, linebackers, quarterbacks, you get a chance to see some things. And you guys in the media highlighted a few plays over the last few days, including, obviously, you, where you brought up what I guess would be the back and forth of the day. You talked about the defense getting the best of the O's and the O getting the best of the defense. Can you take us on the field of what happened yesterday?
Oh, that was so much fun. Really quickly, something else came to mind I want to bring up for Cowboys fans. Keep in mind Zach Martin's contract.
Yep.
Okay, so Zach Martin, you referenced that he was not at the start of training camp last year. He got a new contract, but that new contract was basically to give him a pay raise, not necessarily to extend him. So next year he's going into a contract year. So I just don't see that there's another contract that he negotiates. So I think the contractuals come into play as well. Now, moving over to minicamp yesterday. So there was a lot to be taken away positively. But those 7-on-7s, it felt so much like training camp that I caught myself smiling, like after each big play. One play in particular, and if anyone knows the orientation of the field, outside at the Star in Frisco, you have a near side, a far side. So first big play was near side, 7-on-7, first team. Dak Prescott, he drops back. I couldn't make out who he was targeting in the middle flat, but I could make out who made that play. Eric Kendricks, he almost lays out completely. He swipes the ball in the air, creates a tip drill. It goes to the back of the end zone. A bunch of traffic out of nowhere comes Super Dono. I mean, he flew in like the son of Cal, the son of L, just horizontal, gets the interception. Eric Kendricks, Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, they all clear out the sideline. Like, everybody on the defense is celebrating. They're running past Dak Prescott, pointing, talking their trash. But wait, there's more. Not so fast, my friend. Very next play, also from about the 15-yard line, so it was red zone, 7-on-7. Dak Prescott drops back. Coverage is just stout, right? Deron Bland is where he needs to be. Jordan Lewis is where he needs to be. Where's that going? Out of nowhere, Brandon Cooks streaking across the back of the end zone. There was a pinhole-sized window for Dak to put that ball through, and damn it, he did. And Brandon Cooks in stride, back of the end zone, through like three defenders' hands, touchdown. Brandon Cooks, Dak Prescott, they start going crazy. The receivers, the offense on the sideline starts going crazy. Dak's looking at the defense, looking at Dono, looking at Eric Kendricks, puts both of his arms in the air, basically to say, where you at now? And it just went back and forth from there. So it was a very training camp feel yesterday at minicamp.
Man, you love to hear that because, like I said, you really can't do much. Micah talked about this. A lot of players talk about it. You can't touch these guys or anything like that. But to hear that there's that competitive nature already, I feel like it's setting the stage for training camp.
Agreed, and I brought that to Dak's attention yesterday in his post-practice interview. I asked him, I said, hey, big plays being made in 7-on-7s, but equally as important was the big energy after each play from both sides of the ball, the big celebrations, the kind of trash talk. And I said, how key is it and how good does it feel to have that training camp energy as early as mid-June before you go into the slow period, which should help. Obviously, you guys hit the ground running in Oxnard, and he was like, it's fantastic to see that kind of intensity. And keep in mind, and Dak Prescott reiterated this yesterday, he's one of the biggest, trash talkers on the team. So he's egging a lot of this. On. He wants to see it. He wants to get it. And then, of course, you have that on the other side of the ball as well. And then now come to find out, go figure, Eric Kendricks is a trash talker as well. So this is going to be real fun going forward.
Hey, to put a microscope, pun intended, on that play or a specific player, Eric Kendricks, man, they call him EK, I noticed. But Eric Kendricks, when he got signed, Pat, we all talked about how I think he's going to help the run defense. I think he's going to help the front seven in general. And one of the things that kind of went under the radar was, hey, let's not forget that EK, like I said, as they call him, was also at one point one of, if not regarded as the best cover linebacker in football. So when I hear this play being made, that gets me excited because LVE, look, I think he was okay in coverage. I think there was a point in time when he was really good, then the injuries caught up to him. His size
When
helped
he was
because
younger.
when he was younger, he's 6'5". He did really good in that drop back Tampa 2 stuff under Rod Marinelli. And at time to time, Dan would do it. But I just think
Yeah,
Eric,
just ask Philadelphia. They
right?
know.
Yeah. I think got a pick on him. Was it last year?
He did.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't last year,
2
but
years
yeah,
ago.
he
In
did.
his rookie year.
So in his rookie year, yeah.
But Eric Kendricks, we saw it firsthand in 2019 when he covered was it Zeke out the backfield, shut that down. We saw it a few times last year in coverage, actually against Dallas. He had some good coverage plays in LA. But I feel like that part of his game is so underrated, and we don't talk about it a lot because we're trying to fix the run defense. But if he can kind of be maybe not who he once was, but who he once was just one time, meaning one season, I'm okay with that from a coverage standpoint, and it's such an underrated aspect to his game.
Well, based upon what I'm seeing thus far, and let's put an asterisk on that because it's mini camp and the real work starts in training camp. But what I'm seeing is his quickness is reminiscent of his All-Pro season. And his mental acuity, the football IQ is always going to be there. So the instinct is always going to be there. He's always been one of the most instinctual linebackers in the NFL. So that's not going to change. The only thing that changes with age is the physical ability.
Right.
But his physical ability looks as crisp as I've seen it look. Now, again, we'll put an asterisk on that because we'll see when he gets to training camp and you have those more intense practices and it's not just 7-on-7s and it's full contact, it's 11-on-11. Let's see how that looks. But thus far, the way he's moving in conjunction with his play recognition, in conjunction with the reunion with Zimmer, indicates largely that this could be a very, very strong season for Eric Kendricks. But to your point, or I should say, and to your point, particularly in coverage, because I believe it's a foregone conclusion that Eric Kendricks is going to, number one, be a leader for this team, for this defense. That's why he's going to be the green dot, I believe. And he's also going to help in run defense. I think those two things are foregone conclusions. I think, like you said, the question was, physically, as he ages, can he still cover like he used to cover? That play and a couple of other ones I saw yesterday when he was tasked with actually covering the flat, when he was tasked with shading a tight end or making life difficult for a slot receiver trying to get an in route, that looked damn good. There's no other way for me to put it. It just looked damn good, and it bodes well for not only the Cowboys linebacker core, but also for a young guy like Maris Newfile, who's coming in and he's going to use his versatility and his ability to cover. He gets to kind of mirror what Kendricks is doing. A guy like DeMarvion Overshown, who we know plays sideline to sideline, and he can cover extremely well as well. And now he gets to kind of learn from Eric Kendricks and those coverage tendencies and cues and what to look for. And what does that mean as far as maybe shortening the both learning curve of a redshirt rookie and DeMarvion Overshown, but also a guy who's coming back off of an ACL who the Cowboys need to kind of hit the ground running, but realistically don't know if that'll be week 1, week 4, week 6. So all things considered, just the presence of Eric Kendricks and how he can also help these linebackers acclimate to Mike Zimmer, I just think it's the most valuable addition. Now, granted, they didn't have many, but I'm talking about draft picks as well.
Right.
He's the most valuable addition by far in this Cowboys free agency.
Sounds like he's one of a handful of guys that stood out, not just to you, but to other observers down there. And as we kind of transition into some of the standouts, I do want to start off with one of the young bucks that you tweeted about, one of the rookies, Ryan Flournoy. You tweeted this yesterday, and I'm just going to read part of it. You said, I'm going to go ahead and say I believe Ryan Flournoy is going to turn heads in Oxnard. The plays he's making thus far largely hint at it. Can you take us down on the field on what you saw with Ryan Flournoy yesterday?
So the thing with whether it be obviously rookie minicamp, but also OTAs, and then a good part of minicamp is, it's like Mike McCarthy said, a lot of this prior to training camp is structured to lean toward rookies and putting more and more on their plate and an emphasis on their development and, getting them comfortable with installs and things like that. I say that to say I've had a keen eye on all of the rookies, even through minicamp, as recently as yesterday. Kept an eye on some of the veterans, but I was really keyed in on the rookies. Ryan Flournoy has been consistent in how he has impressed me. First time I saw him on the field, it was his size.
Yeah.
Second time I saw him running reps, it was the efficiency and quickness of his route running out of his breaks. I was not expecting that, because when you look at someone who's a true X receiver, who has the same physical build more or less as Michael Gallup, you would expect that the route running will need refinement, okay? And I'm not saying it doesn't need refinement on Flournoy. I'm saying that he's already ahead of where I thought that he would be. And the way he gets in and out of his breaks makes it difficult for even the stickiest of cornerbacks. Kalen Carson, for example. I'm very high on Kalen Carson. And Kalen Carson has been performing very well as well thus far in the offseason program. Very sticky, no Diddy. Very physical at the line of scrimmage. It's just a difficult guy to get space on. And Flournoy gets space on him pretty easily. That is not saying Carson is not doing his job, because what did I just say? Carson is doing very well, but Flournoy is just raw athleticism, quickness, speed, and then on top of that, when he did what he did yesterday, like I put in the tweet, you add that to everything I'm saying, and it's like, how can he not turn heads if he continues this trajectory? And what I'm referring to is a particular play was far side. This is why I referenced near side versus far side earlier. Far side of the field, so I couldn't make out who the defensive back was that he did this on. Couldn't make out the number, but it was second team, 7-on-7. It was a third team. It was a Trey Lance ball. And here you have things getting muddy. It was from the 10-yard line, goal line defense, so things get muddy in the end zone. Flournoy runs his route. It was like a double step quick fade. Doesn't get enough space because there's not enough space to be had and there's traffic. But Trey high points the ball where only one person can get it, which is his receiver. Flournoy elevates while spinning in midair, high points it, very Dez Bryant-ish, very Michael Gallup-ish, but his momentum, because of the speed that he came out of the break, his momentum is taking him quickly out of bounds. Contorts in midair, stares down at the grass, gets both toes down, offense goes crazy. If he can do that is what they need in the absence of Michael Gallup. That's what's going to make it challenging for Jalen Tolbert to definitely go in and get a guaranteed WR3, which also goes to say Jalen Brooks, he's going to make it difficult. Jalen Cropper, he's going to make it difficult. You know, you're going to have these guys. Corey Crooms, keep an eye on that undrafted guy. He's been making, my eyebrow raise a couple times like The Rock, the final boss. So Ryan Flournoy, in a wide receivers room that is flooded with bodies. And you have veterans like Kevontae Turpin, who I keep telling everybody, Kevontae Turpin might steal the show, not as a returner in Oxnard, as a receiver. So, but even with that level of competition, it's hard for me right now to draw a line through Ryan Flournoy and automatically coordinate Jalen Tolbert or Jalen Brooks or Kevontae Turpin, WR3, WR4. I don't know that if Ryan Flournoy continues how he is doing, I don't know how you justify him not being on this roster, because his trajectory combined with his athleticism it's out of here.
I mentioned about Flournoy, just the athleticism alone and playmaking ability alone is worth development. Even if he's not quite ready to be, have a major role in 2024, you have to put some legitimate development into this kid because he's super athletic and he has the right headspace and mindset. It's worth it. And we've seen McCarthy throughout the years do that, have guys like that who may have not hit right away, but he took some time. I'll talk about all his receivers, really. James Jones. I always forget the white one. Jordy Nelson. There we go. Jordy
Nelson. Now,
Jordy Nelson.
I had to just laugh at first. That's racist.
I know. I did it on purpose because there's a fan that thinks I'm like that. I'm like, you're crazy, man. But all those receivers, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, James Jones, they all take time to develop. And I will put some time into Ryan Flournoy. And I think this wide receiver 3, competition is going to be heated come training camp.
100%. And also added point when it comes to Ryan Flournoy is, keep in mind what I'm saying about his footwork and his ability to get in and out of his breaks. His route tree is more than just a 9 route. It's more than just a go route. It's more than just a 10 and in. and try to get some yak thereafter with his physicality. Can he do those things? Absolutely he can. Look at his measurables. Go look at his film. He can absolutely do those things. But it looks like he can also run some very, very good routes. And if that turns out to be true, it looks like it can be. If it turns out to be true, now guess what? Maybe he can get some slot work as well. This increases his value to be able to play in all three positions. And that combined with the fact that when I spoke to the young man in rookie minicamp, one of the main things he pointed out was not only that he's trying to mirror his game after Jerry Rice, which I have no qualms with, but he also mentioned unprovoked how important special teams play is going to be for him. So he also has that in mind as well, trying to make himself extremely valuable for Bones Fossil and special teams. He's coming in, he's ready to work, and that's going to be incomparable. It's going to be priceless as far as what he can possibly be for the Cowboys. But I do, number one, I'm going to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring. I feel like he's going to make the roster. We'll see who he might cost the job there. But I do think that you'll see him on offense at some point in his rookie season. I don't know to what degree. I'm not saying it's going to be a breakout season. I'm not saying anything of that nature. I'm saying whether it be 5 snaps, 10 snaps, 3 snaps, I just think he finds his way onto the field because I think that, number one, his athleticism is just something that can't be denied. And then if he continues to develop as training camp goes along, as preseason goes along, I mean, how are you going to keep this young man off the field?
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Flournoy, a.k.a. Des Bryant. Pat Nosey Walker.
See, this is why I can't go there with you people.
Y'all better not hold my man to that. We got Patrick Nosey Walker, DallasCowboys.com, joining us on this week's version of the Scientific Method. Pat, we saw the return of the Lion, Micah Parsons, and some media and fans had a whole lot of fun twisting and turning his sit down with you guys, right? And we'll probably get into some of it.
Nauseous from all that, running all those circles, man. They were just
goodness.
sitting there spinning everything.
I mean, how are they not dizzy? I don't know. But
I don't know. Dreidel. Like, all right.
I think
spin it there.
On a serious note, I think there was something on field related. He said that was largely overshadowed by all the other hoopla, which really wasn't hoopla if you listen to the interview. But anyway, it was overshadowed. And I'm gonna play this small clip here, and I want to discuss it with you a little bit. And it was regarding Micah's usage under a Mike Zimmer.
It'll be fun, and I think it's going to be unique. There's a lot of similarities on things, how he used me with how Dan used me in the system. But he has more twists and turns of how he's going to set things up. And also, there's some things that I got to get used to, too.
Oh, he talked about twisting and turning. He says similarities to how Dan used him, but twist and turns in the process. And that latter part definitely sounds like Mike Zimmer. He loves to disguise things. And it also sounds like, he knows he'll have to, and he's receptive to learning new things in how he'll be used. I feel like that is way more important than all the other stuff that, was put out there, is that we are going to see Micah potentially, sounds like, moved around a lot more. Is that something? I know it was brief, only a few practices it was there. Did you see him kind of lined up in that short amount of time that you were there?
Yeah, they moved him around a little bit, and like you said, it's minicamp, and it was only 2 practices that he has been there that we've had availability for. But he has moved around a bit. But I can tell you that as far as the agenda is concerned, the agenda is absolutely the situations as far as the what the opposing offense can and cannot predict. And Mike McCarthy said that on yesterday in the press conference. He said Micah Parsons is a weapon, and in that they don't necessarily want to pigeonhole him to saying he's a linebacker or he's an edge rusher. He will be whatever they need him to be on any given rep. We saw that last year with Dan Quinn. You saw sometimes he was a zero tech.
So facts. I mean, hand in the dirt, lined up over the center. It was crazy.
Exactly. There those types of instances, and they worked, right? So when you look at, you start following the tea leaves or reading the tea leaves, and you hear Mike McCarthy say things like that, and then with our conversation with Mike Zimmer, he says things like coming into a defense that's already good, wanting to find what works, perfect that, and also fix what doesn't work, which goes to what Micah Parsons was saying a couple of days ago, in that there are going to be some new twists and turns and things like that from Zimmer. But again, in that same soundbite, you heard him say that or basically intimate that it's not going to be a complete overhaul. Mike Zimmer's coming in. He's going to look at how Dan Quinn used Micah Parsons, and he's going to say, hey, this worked, this worked, this worked. Let's figure out how to tweak these to make these that much more effective. This didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Scrap those and let me insert what I do into this equation. So, those should have been the main takeaways.
I agree.
But obviously, as much as you love Micah, he kept talking because the cameras were still on and, maybe, should not have kept talking. But at the same time, the correct takeaway is the one that we're talking about right now, not the whole he's only had one, he's never had a Micah before. Oh, well, that's not a lie. Okay. And that's my thought process. Like, he's not lying, right? And then the whole, we're going to talk, he's going to compromise. Okay, that's just the generational talent talking, knowing his value. But let me tell you, this is the same Mike Zimmer that when we had the conversation a few weeks ago, he said, he's adapted to the way he does things, but, and this is his quote, things have to be done the way I want them done, end quote.
And I think it sounds like he understands that when he said there's things I'm going to have to get used to. But I don't think compromising is some foreign concept with your great players and coaches. He's a unique player. They have to figure out how to compromise certain things. And I think people got it twisted thinking when he said that, he meant like, oh, I'm not playing backer. Look, folks, let me say this for the millionth time. He has no problem playing at linebacker when he needs to play linebacker. He doesn't control that. But there's this narrative out there that he does, and it's completely false.
100% false, much like the narrative that Micah only cares about Micah. I think that the latter part of that narrative that I just mentioned comes from people's expectations. And if you're expecting him to be the vocal leader that leads in a way that, let's say, Dak Prescott leads or DeMarcus Lawrence leads, you're going to continue to set yourself up for disappointment because that's not who he is, right? Leadership comes in different forms. I said this yesterday on Cowboys Break, and I said it 3 weeks ago when it comes to Micah. Not every elite soldier is designed to be a general.
Facts.
And the more that you try to turn every single elite soldier into a general, it's an exercise in futility. You're just going to keep disappointing yourself because most elite soldiers are just not, number one, they either don't want to be a general, which is completely fine, right? Or they just don't have the ability to do that, to lead in that way. So how do they lead? They lead by example. They lead by production. They lead by, holding the standard on the field, on the battlefield, for lack of a better way to put it, and saying, hey, this is the standard. This is how we need to play. Follow my lead in that way. But if you're talking about you want him to be a locker room leader like Dak Prescott is, DeMarcus Lawrence is, like Leighton Vander Esch was, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So it's much like CeeDee Lamb, right? CeeDee Lamb, no one can argue CeeDee Lamb is the definitive leader of that wide receiver room. I think we can all agree on that. And yet this is the same CeeDee Lamb that had a lot of Cowboys fans up in arms because they didn't like his demeanor on the sideline when things weren't going his way. He shut down. He got quiet. That's how he was processing mentally. But guess what happened in the next game, and the next game, and the next game? 3 150-yard. See, this is what I mean. Like, leadership comes in different forms. You just need to tweak how you expect any particular person to lead. And I'm going to tell you right now, Micah Parsons is not going to be your Dak Prescott. He's not going to be your DeMarcus Ware. He's going to be your Micah Parsons. Yeah. And the sooner you come to terms with that, the easier your life will be and the more enjoyable your life will be.
Well, there's a target on his back, man, and it was only a matter of time. It happens to most of the players here in Dallas when you don't win the Super Bowl. So hopefully he understands that and he's able to just push through it and be the great player that he is. And he's a good person too, but people don't really care about that. They hear podcast Parsons and it's get him off the team, so it's kind of wild. But Pat, I know you got to get going.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
And real quick before I head out, because I got to get you.
Yeah, I won't make you late. Don't blame me.
No, I'm good. And I'll add this. I want fans to understand that they are more than justified in being pissed off about lack of Super Bowl success.
100.
They are more than justified in looking for someone to blame, in which case I say spread the blame. Don't point at one particular individual because you win as a team, you lose as a team, right? But I will say this. while it's true that we can all be pissed off and demand more and demand accountability and want to see certain things, like example, I wanted Michael Parsons to be present for OTAs. I'm on record as saying that. I wanted him present for voluntary because I felt like with all of the changeover on defense, he needed to get with Zimmer as quickly as possible. So do I like that he wasn't present in voluntary? No, I do not like that. But he didn't miss mandatory, and he's not missing training camp. And so grace in that respect, especially considering the fact that last year he didn't show up for voluntary. And, yeah, he didn't. We can talk about how we wanted him more from him in the playoff game against the Packers. But this is also a guy who has 40 sacks in his first 50 games, third fastest to that point, even faster than Lawrence Taylor. So, you know, would you give Lawrence Taylor some grace if he said something that you didn't necessarily agree with? If social media was around when LT was playing football, what would that look like?
I mean, when the Cowboys in the 90s.
I'll leave it at that.
We ain't got to go to another team, just the Cowboys.
When Charles Haley was in a Cowboys uniform, Michael Irvin, those guys, what would the world be? Would Twitter be demanding you trade Charles Haley because of some of the things that I will not air out, but were happening then? Michael Irvin as well. And then the same goes for a talent like LT and some of these other generational talents. And I say all that to say, man, we're not talking about the 53rd man on the roster. So stop acting like we're talking about the 53rd man on the roster. And it could be much worse as far as Mike is concerned. His off-the-field demeanor, if the worst thing that pisses you off about his off-the-field demeanor is he has a podcast and he says certain things that you wish he didn't, then I'll take it.
Of course you would.
Because I don't see him getting arrested.
There's a whole lot of things that other players are doing.
I don't see him getting suspended. Yeah, I don't see him getting arrested. I don't see him getting suspended.
He ain't beating up nobody. He ain't drunk driving. He ain't hit nobody. He ain't selling coke.
Saying. He's not involved in drive-bys.
What are we talking about?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So relax, everybody. Some things he'll say, and we will all laugh because we get good laughs out of Micah. His sound bites, they're funny, right? But then some things he'll say that we cringe. Consider yourself when it comes to that as well. You think everything you say is funny and not cringeworthy? Stop that. The difference is that he can really do what we can't. So let's give that man some grace.
Hey, man, you heard it here first.
On that note, I got to hit this meeting.
Hey, yeah, boy, you making up out of here, man. Patrick No. C. Walker, scientific method, man. Love you, big dog. Peace.